So here's the sitch on the ATL Boxscore. It's Football Friday here at the ATL Boxscore, and we got a lot of football to talk about here in the month of May on Labor Day weekend, including when Nick Saban finally steps down. Maybe that's a long, long time from now. Who's going to replace him? We also have Stanley from the three-point conversion on the show today to talk all things NFL, NFL OTAs, and also, too, is Grady Jarrett going to be a Falcon for life? We get into that and much more here at the ATL Boxscore podcast. This is Atlanta's newest sports podcast, and we appreciate you joining us today to start off your Memorial Day weekend. Thanks for hanging out with us. It's going to be a lot of fun today. With starting a new podcast, people ask me all the time, Alex, where do you record your show at? Do you do it at your house? No, I don't do it at my house because of just a lot of different logistical factors. The place that I do it at is actually a place called Spaces, Midtown East. And Spaces is a co-working center where I get my show recorded and I get other work done. Co-working has been one of these new phenomenons in the private business sector that has popped up recently. And Spaces also has another brand called Regis, which is more of a professional brand. Spaces is more for creators like myself. But to tell you more about these special brands in the business world is Mr. Steve Choi.
Thanks, Alex. I appreciate those kind words. We absolutely love having you and ATL Boxscore as part of our space. It's always great when we see you doing your work. But absolutely, Spaces and the Regis concept, we are both workplace providers here in the Atlanta area, but all around the world. We have over 250 Spaces locations worldwide, plus over 1,500 Regis locations. And what we're really here to do is just provide flexible options for any type of professional, whether you're an independent professional, creative, or if you're a large or small business. So we have several different types of options from small to large and memberships, part-time, full-time. So definitely come on out and check us out. Go ahead and look at the link on Alex's site and ask for Steve Choi. And if you ever come into one of our locations, let us know that Alex sent you or ATL Boxscore, and we'll go ahead and set you up with a free 5-day test drive.
Yeah, you can't beat that 5-day test drive. In those 5 days, you will know if Spaces or Regis is the right brand for you. And Spaces is all over the place. They're a little bit more limited, but they're in the main areas of the city. The one we are is right in the heart of Midtown, near the Fox Theater. There's one at the Battery. There's going to be one opening up North Point Mall there. And there's also a location in Colony Square. So they are all over the metro area. At just about any major business building in the Atlanta area has a Regis in it. So just Google them. But Spaces and Regis and Steve Choi in particular is your place to do your business.
Watch it! And then they let you out when you're of no use to anybody.
Wow. That, ladies and gentlemen, was a YouTube video that I've seen all over social media recently, but that was from Rock the King on YouTube. So we're going to put that YouTube video in our show description, but that was an impression of a kid doing an impression of Stephen A. Smith, who seems to be right now the person that everyone wants to pick on, just because of his outrageousness that is Stephen A. Smith.
It's sort of like payback, because he kind of picks on everybody else, right?
He does pick on everybody else,
Yeah,
so everyone else picks on him.
No tears shed. No tears shed.
What
tears shed.
You said something this morning about Stephen A. Smith.
This morning I said something about Stephen A.
You made an interesting point.
Refresh my memory.
I can't remember. Dang it.
I don't think that was this morning, but Stephen A. is just a loudmouth.
Mm-hmm.
He has. So here's the thing about Stephen A. I guess he used to be a journalist, but I don't think he does any sort of fact finding anymore. So what Stephen A. gets his money on. Can he talk louder than you? Making a mockery of himself, and spreading rumors and gossip. So essentially, that girl you knew in high school, that's Stephen A.
On ESPN.
On ESPN. Getting all the attention because she spreads all the rumors, and she's a big loudmouth in class. You remember her, right?
Well, I feel like with the emergence of ESPN, the only outlet that these guys had was some column or just pretty much some sports column for some newspaper and everything. And now that ESPN is on 24/7 and they need things to fill their show, guys like Stephen A. Smith, who probably started out with a journalist background or a writing background, became must-see TV or projected himself as kind of like a reality star like Omarosa.
Absolutely.
And now that's all he does.
Well, the thing about it is he knows how to stir the pot.
Right.
So he realized at a very early stage in his career that, in order to take it to the next level from writing or reporting, you have to become a character. And so that's what we watch on TV. We watch characters, and he's definitely a character. Is Stephen A. like that outside? I don't know, probably. But regardless, I'm sure he's some sort of caricature of himself in real life. But he amps it up for the cameras. So, hey, more power to Stephen A. I call him Stephen A. Big Dummy. But he's doing his thing, and he's making his money doing it. So, kudos to him. I don't think he actually knows. Like, I think he's probably has a strong network of people that he talks to all the time.
Right.
This is what I would love to do. I would love to hold sports journalists, broadcasters, personalities, whatever you want to call them, to the same standard that we hold athletes. So let's look at their track record. What are they averaging in terms of their predictions, in terms of their supposedly reporting? Let's see what they reported on, last year. What was their average in predicting things to come, or all the rumors they heard that actually became true? Let's do that, and let's see where they rank. And I would love to do that and see just how great these guys are. That's how reliable they are. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. You always go back to that thing.
And that's the truth. I mean, I grew up around a lot of sports writers. I studied journalism. I was a sports editor for my college paper. So I know how it is. It's basically a bunch of dudes who were failed athletes or wannabe athletes that never had a chance to be an athlete, or at least not a professional one. And they grow up admiring the sport and the athletes. And so that's the reason why they get into sports journalism, because they have a natural curiosity and passion for
Right, they're doing
whatever.
what they're good at.
Right. So then, but then what happens is at some point in their careers, I feel like they become, because let's also be honest, athletes are just like anybody else, but athletes are also people you put on pedestals and you treat them a certain way, and then they treat you the way that a person who's put on a pedestal would treat you. And so I'll give you a good example. So the women's Final Four came to San Jose years and years ago, and my paper was tasked to write an article or interview some of the WNBA players who were using our gym as a photo shoot, a setting to do a photo shoot for Nike. And so Lisa Leslie was there, Don Staley was there. There was a bunch of at the time big time and WNBA players, right? So my buddy who was also a journalist, it was his assignment. I was a sports editor, and so we go, and they don't really care. I mean, they don't really want to be interviewed. They're like, I'm just here to do, take some pictures. And so they're kind of giving him the cold shoulder and whatever, because, he's not a big time journalist.
That's what all athletes do.
And so what happens is that creates a chip on their shoulder, on that journalist's shoulder. And so when they finally get to a place, to the pinnacle of sports reporting where they actually have an audience and people are reading what they say, now it's payback. Now it's time to be like, I'm the guy with the power, and I can, paint you out to be any way I want. So you better give me the attention that I deserve. And it's a vicious cycle. And I've seen it. I'm not saying all sports journalists do it, and I'm not saying all athletes act that way, but I've seen it firsthand. And that's why I'm never impressed with sports journalists, because I'm just like, what are you, other than asking questions and writing down what you hear, what are you really doing? You're not like a political reporter or a beat reporter where you're sneaking into places and trying to uncover scandals or anything like that. You're just following athletes around and asking questions.
It seems like Terrence Moore, though, he an old sports writer here for the AJC, that he was in a lot of ESPN shows, and he tried to get on Stephen A. Smith's level, but it just never panned out.
Right.
I remember one guy on Sports Talk Radio was like, "Man, seeing Terrence Moore on all these ESPN shows, when does he have time to write?"
Exactly. So what the irony is the person, the writer or the broadcast reporter, whatever you want to call them, now becomes the celebrity. And so it's that's weird to me. Like you're supposed to be, it's sort of like checks and balances.
This is the world we live in. This is from the,
it is. It absolutely is.
From the reality TV world. If you're the loudest, if you're the most outspoken,
most unique,
if you're the most probably jerk-ish
right.
or contrarian or someone that we just love talking, we just love gossiping about you behind your back, then you get ahead in this reality world.
Absolutely.
So with that being said, this is the ATL Boxscore podcast, Atlanta's newest sports podcast. I'm Alex Berger. Alongside me is Mr. Steve Choi, and we just want to welcome you, and I'm glad you're hanging out with us today, and happy Memorial Day.
Cheers.
Happy Memorial Day to you, buddy.
Memorial Day, can I just say something? This is probably needs to be a Choi to the world eventually, but can I just say this? When you guys are grilling out there, and you're, drinking some beer, remember Memorial Day is more than just a day off of work. Thank you. It is actually to memorialize the veterans that have gave the ultimate or paid the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom. So just think about that. I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer, but a lot of times these days we don't even really know what we're celebrating or what we're sort of observing for these holidays, and we think it's just a daily party and let our hair down.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but unlike that video that we did, today's actually going to be a great day.
A great day.
We have Stanley on from the 3-point conversion, going to talk some NFL with us because it is Football Friday, and we're 11 minutes in, but that's what we'll call our non-football minute. But right now we're going to get locked into Football Friday, and we're going to, going to have Ab Stanley on, going to get into Nick Saban and what the future looks like at Alabama when Nick Saban finally decides to call it quits and spend more time with Miss Terry. So we have that coming up next. Did you hear about another Florida player transferred?
I did not hear about it. Tell me about it, buddy.
Another key linebacker from that great Florida defense that they had last year has now transferred, and so yeah, that's unfortunate news for Florida, but I guess Florida's living up to not be that place anymore, where it's not a destination place anymore for college football players if they want to.
Things are a-changing.
Yeah, if they want to enter into the transfer portal.
Hey, things are changing.
Right. And with that being said, if you like what you heard the past 12 minutes, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. We are found where all great podcasts are on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, and you can also find us on Tumblr, even though that's not really a podcast hosting platform. So yeah, that's the way you could reach out to us. Put a comment if you so dare to, and just like, subscribe, and comment. That would help us out tremendously to get your feedback and just to contribute to the conversation, because I do read all the comments that we get. And there are a good bit of them.
Before you go, I just wanted to say congratulations to the Braves. They brought up their new guy, Austin Riley, and he's on a tear. 9 games and 5 homers. They just obliterated my boys, the Giants, this past series. So great job, Braves.
Austin Riley,
Bravos.
He's actually a Memphis native, so they got him out of the Southeast.
Killing it.
He is killing it.
He's hot. He's hot like that southern weather.
like that southern summer.
That's right. Hot like it too.
All right. Well, with that being said, we're going to get into who's going to be the next replacement there at Alabama when that happens. So right now in college football, there's a lot of talking going on, a lot of hypothetical stuff out there. Athlon has released their top 25, which usually the Athlon magazine comes out around this time of year, and a lot of college football magazines coming out with their top 25, just an example. And a lot of hypothetical talk happens, a lot of predictions for this year always comes out about this year and maybe what the future is possibly going to look like in college football. So since it's May right now and there's literally nothing on the college football calendar, from a college football standpoint, I like to call this time of year magazine season, because that's pretty much what it is. It's just a bunch of magazines that come out that pretty much say the same thing over and over again. That Georgia overall, for example, overall Alabama's number 1, Clemson's number 2, Georgia's number 3. You're going to see that in a lot of different magazines. Maybe they'll change them up a little bit. You might have Clemson number 1, you might have Alabama number 2, then Georgia still staying at 3, or Clemson 2, Georgia, or Clemson 1, Georgia 2, Alabama 3. You're going to have a lot of that going on right now with these magazines. In this segment, I'm not really trying to talk about top 25 polls. I'm more trying to talk about the fact that there's just a lot of hypothetical conversations going around right now because there isn't any live football on the field, because once the season starts, we all get caught up on what's going on the field of play and writing about that, talking about that. But now it's kind of like we can take a step back for a second. No spring games, no spring practice, and we can just kind of hypothetically talk about college football. And that's what we're going to do right now, just on this segment. Because this subject in particular, I'm pretty sure for Alabama people, that since Nick Saban got to Alabama, this is probably a discussion. This became more regional discussion type of thing when Nick Saban won his first national championship. Man, that's going to be 10 years this year since he won it. That time goes by so fast since that 09 season. But Saban right now is 67 years old, which logic says, and conventional wisdom says, that he's probably going to have to step down at some point just because of age. But I feel like we should have learned by now that that Saban is an anomaly in himself. That there's no one, and there's probably not gonna be anyone close to Saban. I know Georgia fans are kind of hoping Kirby Smart is the next Nick Saban. But for right now, Nick Saban is sort of in a category of his own because he's doing this at 67. And just from a standpoint, because when coaches get this old, they pretty much shut it down. Yeah, you're going to have a lot of baseball managers that have been managing baseball. And I'm not saying that I'm not saying football is just above baseball in a standpoint, but it's hard to be competitive when you get to an older age, especially in college football. Now, the dynamics are just a little bit different from that standpoint. There's a lot more added pressure when you're getting up in age and you're a head football coach nowadays. Usually the coaches that enter into almost that 70 range play at schools where no one really cares about, but Saban's playing at Alabama, where all eyes are on him. The closest comparison, because I just wanted to kind of compare it to someone else coaching at high level that's up in that age range, and the only person I can really compare that to is Greg Popovich of the San Antonio Spurs. Greg Popovich is actually 70, which maybe that's to surprise some of you, but he's still competing at a high level, making the playoffs year in, year out. Now, maybe for some of you Alabama people, Saban's not Saban's not Greg Popovich. Maybe you might not think that's fair. I feel like Saban and Popovich kind of come from that same mold too. Just that there's just these tough guys that come from that generation where the buck stops here and you don't make them like they used to. type of guys. And with Saban's case and with Popovich's case, where I feel like they're different right now is in the arena of play. Because it's pretty much safe to say that Greg Popovich, that his days of having winning championships, having great players and personnel are probably over. I feel like that's pretty much safe to say. With Nick Saban of having great players, competing for championships, winning national championships, those days are still in front of him. That we don't know when this thing's going to stop. And Saban, just to peel some layers back in this Alabama program, like, we've learned that it's Saban maintaining the ship. That it's really Saban at the helm. Because a lot of times with these coaches that have been in these programs forever, that it's usually not that way. It's usually some coordinator holding it down. And when Kirby Smart went to Georgia, we could have seen a drop-off defensively. But right now they haven't done that. Some people think that this year for the Tide, losing the national championship the way they do is going to be a big test. But we're not into the season yet. And Alabama is still one of the kings of college football. And that's just because of Nick Saban has just held it down there with the Crimson Tide, because their former assistants that they've had at Alabama, and they've had some home run hitting coordinators that really held it down there. Like Kirby Smart, Jeremy Pruitt, Lane Kiffin, Jim McElwain. All those guys right now are head coaches. So that just shows you the guys that he gets in there. And he always seems to replace a major coordinator every year. Every year he seems to replace someone or replace like a handful of guys. And still they maintain that competitiveness. If you do that anywhere else, if you did this, let's just say at Clemson or Auburn or another place like this, they wouldn't be able to handle that many changes in their coaching staff. But Nick Saban can, and he can still compete for national championships. So, with that being said, we've seen this too with other legacy coaches that have been in programs for a long time, with Bobby Petrino, Bobby Bowden, Phil Fulmer, not Bobby Petrino. I meant Joe Paterno. And when they've lost coordinators, they haven't had a strong season like they did with those key elements of their program. But for Alabama, that's obviously no problem. And it's obviously, we know right now that Nick Saban, his stamp, he is the fabric that keeps Alabama going, not some hotshot coordinator. But with that being said, going back to Saban's age, you're eventually going to have to replace him. But at the same time, Saban's a guy, he doesn't like the word retirement. He is kind of like the Energizer Bunny. He just keeps on going and going and going. And it doesn't look like there's any way that this is going to end. But conventional wisdom says it's going to. And right now, it's looking like Saban might go on for another 5 years at the most. So, when it comes to replacing Saban, the conventional choice, the choice which I feel like has gone on in circles since Dabo Sweeney has been consistent, especially with Alabama people, is Dabo Sweeney. Which Dabo Sweeney right now has had a lot of success. Not bad. I mean, he's living the dream right now of a guy who came on as a wide receivers coach and now all of a sudden is a head coach that's won 2 national championships. And he's an Alabama guy, went to Alabama from Pelham, Alabama. And so you would think that this would be a great marriage, great fit for the Crimson Tide. But it's looking like right now, that national championship that you guys played against each other, it's kind of hard right now to get Dabo Sweeney out of Clemson. Let's put aside money for a second. The guy seems to enjoy his time at Clemson. It's pretty obvious. He seems like a small town guy, and that's exactly what Clemson is. It's a small town. And he's not too far from here where he can get all the talent and all the kids that he wants. But we're going to talk about more of that in a moment. But the thing that's locking down Dabo Sweeney is the fact that he got a contract extension for 10 years, $95 million. 10 years, $95 million. They locked him down. And the kicker is, he has a $4 million buyout. But that buyout increases to 50% if he would leave Clemson to go to Alabama. And now they would have to pay a $6 million buyout. So they locked down their guy, which is smart. Because at the same time, it's kind of like you've turned Clemson, which is a team that was pretty much in the outside looking in the Tuberville, in the Tommy Bowden years. And now they're the kings of college football. Clemson was kind of a middle-of-the-road program. Now it's expected to win the ACC every year. And with that expectation, why would you want to go to Alabama and having to deal with playing in the SEC West, because right now Ed Orgeron is looking good, so that's going to be one of the guys that's going to try to dethrone you in the West with that LSU game. And you also have teams like Auburn and Arkansas, for example, Texas A&M, Jimbo Fisher, if Saban would to leave, Jimbo Fisher would, a lot of people would think he would be the guy that would try to take over the mantle that Alabama has had over there in the West. So you would have to deal with a brutal schedule in the West. And then on top of that, you would have other internal issues because you would have to live up to Nick Saban and what he's done. That he already has a statue out there. Yeah, it would be a great homecoming for Dabo Sweeney. Dabo Sweeney could probably relate to those players, but it would just be a whole unnecessary stress going on. That why? Because when he first started out at Clemson, if Saban would have retired by like his second national championship or his third national championship and stepped down and said, "Hey guys, I've had my fun," and everything like that, yeah, Alabama would definitely have been an upgrade from where Dabo Sweeney was. Now, Clemson is the same as Alabama. Maybe some Alabama people don't believe that or don't really want to believe that, but where I'm sitting, they're the same program. They compete for national championships. And by the way, they have a little bit easier of a road trying to get there. That they have to play probably 3 or 4 games that are extremely tough where they have to be on their A game. But then they can just coast through the ACC because they have so much more talent than everyone else. But I just want to throw some names out there because with Dabo Sweeney getting locked down at Clemson, it's looking like right now he's probably not going to be the head coach. I don't think he's going to be the head coach when Nick Saban retires. But at the same time, like I said, Nick Saban is the Energizer Bunny, and you just can't stop him. So let's say hypothetically, Saban calls it quits after 5 years. 5 years down the road, I got 3 guys for you that could possibly be the next coach of Alabama. And I'm going to try to hurry up here because I'm going a little bit over on this segment. Jeremy Pruitt. I think he would be a good choice just because he's an alumni. Obviously, he knows how to recruit the Southeast. Obviously, he's coached at Alabama plenty of times, so he knows the expectations there and everything like that. Then another guy, Mario Cristobal, who is the head coach out in Oregon. I think this would be interesting. Yeah, you say he's out there over on the West Coast, but he has a lot of ties to the Crimson Tide program, and he's playing the type of football that all kids want to play nowadays. So you put him in a place like Alabama. I mean, both of these guys, Pruitt and Cristobal, you might think, oh man, I don't know if they'll be successful. Right now, they're pretty much like driving. I would say Jeremy Pruitt's like in a Ford truck. Cristobal is, I want to say, probably in like a Tesla. Well, going to Alabama, you automatically get into a Mercedes-Benz. You automatically get into a Mercedes-Benz since Saban owns 2 Mercedes-Benz dealerships out there. But still, like that's a total upgrade, and you're going to have the resources and you're going to have the ability to get the guys that you want to get to be successful. So that's why I think Cristobal would be a decent option. A dark horse guy, which usually dark horse guys usually get these type of jobs in college football, would be a guy who's coached under Nick Saban, who has a lot of who by this time, because we're looking 5 years down the road, he's gonna have a lot of head coaching experience. But right now, there's a little bit gray area because we don't really know how he's gonna be as a head coach. And I'm talking about Mel Tucker at Colorado. Obviously, what he does at Colorado is going to depend on what happens with his coaching career. But I feel like Mel Tucker, 5 years down the road, would actually be a good replacement for Nick Saban. He knows the Southeast. He knows the expectations of what's going on in Alabama. He also has a little bit of an NFL background. So if Mel Tucker is competitive in the Pac-12 this year and to years to come, I don't know. I feel like that would be a win for Alabama to get Mel Tucker out of Colorado when this actually happens. So that is my take on that. And I know this has probably been something that has been speculated since Nick Saban has became the head coach of the Crimson Tide, who is eventually going to replace him, because we all knew that he was a little bit older, and it looks like the sensible thing would be to step down. But at the same time, Nick Saban just keeps on going. It would be a mistake, though, if I feel like you try to get the next flashy NFL guy or whoever the flashy NFL guy is whenever Nick Saban tries to step down. So now we're going to transition because I'm pretty sure you're tired of hearing me, and we're going to bring on Mr. Ab Stanley to talk all things NFL. Ab writes for the 3-point conversion, so be sure to check out the 3-point conversion. I'm going to put a link to all his stuff right on the show description, so be sure to reference that if you're interested in checking out Ab's stuff. So here is the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Ab Stanley is going to join the conversation here at the ATL Box. Well, now we just want to welcome Ab Stanley on to the conversation here at the ATL Boxscore. Ab, how are you doing today, man?
Alex, good morning. How are you?
I'm great. Like that, the month of May really isn't, not a lot of stuff is really going on in the college football calendar, but at the same time, a lot of NFL things to talk about, and so yeah, I just want to get your take, and I hope that we can just entertain people on this Memorial Day holiday. So right now OTAs are going on. I just want to get, what are your impressions with that so far?
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about local teams, Falcons, for instance, and all over the league, you talk about certain players that don't show up for these, and is it some sort of precursor to will they hold out for some sort of contract? Are they disgruntled about their numbers? Stuff like that. And realistically, the OTAs, I want to say, are voluntary for some players, and it's in certain players' contracts that they have to show up. I want to say the rookies have to show up for all of those. But some of the bigger players with the bigger contracts, I'm pretty sure they're voluntary. So when a guy like, let's say, Julio Jones doesn't show up a day, or Vic Beasley, or one of those guys for the Falcons, if we're using them as an example, you get the speculation around the world. Is Julio holding out for a contract? Why isn't Vic there? He needs to, and OTAs is really just what it is. It's an off-season little training regimen. And it's usually for guys that are newer, first-year, second-year players, or maybe guys switching teams, maybe just want to show up and, have their, show their face in the locker room and stuff like that. So it's like, I think more so than likely you want to get a gist on some of the players in the OTA, some of the younger players, what they're going to do this year. Not necessarily rookies, but maybe players that finally broke through as starters due to injuries last season, or second-year players who were rookies last year, but now they're going to have to play a much bigger role for their team. So it's really like an just an off-season little training regimen, but you always get a little speculation on why a certain player does show up or won't show up for them. So it's right now it's just reporters and everybody just, when you're there, you're just like searching for quotes, and maybe you get some juicy tidbit from a player. But realistically, like you said about a couple of minutes ago, it's really nothing going on other than maybe the guy coming back from injury, or, like I said, a rookie trying to show off what he can do.
Should Falcons fans be worried at all about Julio Jones not showing up to this stuff?
Yeah, I don't think so. I haven't heard anything to the contrary. Again, it's really more so voluntary for older players. I would say more established players, not older, but more established players in the league than I would say the younger guys. But I don't think Julio Jones needs to show up to these type of things. Maybe just to show his face, and some of the people, the fans maybe that were there, maybe could see him, he could sign some autographs. But realistically, I'm sure Julio is where he's at. He's training. He's getting ready for the season, and he's making sure that he's whatever little injuries already that he has, he's just gonna try to get over it. You know, he's always a guy that's dealing with some type of foot, toe, and heel or something on his foot. So I don't think Julio Jones really needs to be there, but there's so much speculation because he's not there. Why isn't he there? I really just think he wanted to be by himself or whatever who he works out with and just get away from all of the hoopla and noise and really take the off season and get himself better and himself ready. So it's like, I think it's being overblown because the same thing happened last year, and he was working out with Terrell Owens, and it's like, oh wow, what is T.O. putting in his head, and then he wanted a little extra. But, you know, and by the time it's all over, he wants extra money, and the Falcons give it to him. So, and, you know, there was, I want to say, talk of him getting an extension at some point, another extension. Remember, he's still on one right now. 5 years, 70-something million, I want to say, when everybody signed years a couple of years ago, Brown and those guys. But, like, there was talk of him getting another contract. So people are, I guess some worry could be the word that some Falcons fans might think. But I don't think you should be. I don't think you should be worried overall. Like, I just think he's just getting away from the whole hoopla of the noise and the cameras and the lights. And he's just working out by himself, trying to get himself better.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, because it seemed like last year at this time, him not showing up, everyone was worried. Everyone thought that he was trying to get traded or anything like that, and media members trying to put together some sort of story that kind of just sounds like very controversial. And then he came out and said it's like, no, I'm still staying with the Falcons. It's just that I'm doing my own thing. So I just want to get your thoughts on this Ndamukong Suh thing because the Rams obviously the Rams last year put together one heck of a defensive line, and Ndamukong Suh leaving now for the Bucs for $10 million. How does that shake up the Bucs, and where does that leave the Rams at?
Right. Well, the Bucs, they got rid of their longtime defensive tackle, Gerald McCoy, and it was almost a day or two later them signing Suh. Now, they owed McCoy about $13 million, and I think they owed him about $13 million in the upcoming season. It goes to about $40 million through the next couple of seasons, and they basically signed Suh, for 1 year and around $9 million. The incentives could push it up to $10 million, but the incentives could push it up to about $10 million. But it's basically they're saving about $4 million up front. You can't really quantify the type of leader that McCoy might have been for that defense in exchange for like an Ndamukong Suh, who is a new guy, and Ndamukong Suh, there's always going to be talk of him doing something outrageous, going over the top. I think him being a bad teammate is overblown. I've never heard that from his teammates. I've heard that from opposing players that he's a dirty player. I've never really heard it from his own teammates. Like, Ndamukong Suh's a bad teammate. So I don't know what the real lure of bringing in Ndamukong Suh is over getting rid of McCoy, but it's like I said, in the NFL, if you could save $4 million, $5 million, that could be another quality player to at least start off a contract. So they're always looking for ways to get under the salary cap, and I want to say getting rid of McCoy was first and foremost a salary cap thing because the type of player that he's been there, he's been there for quite a while. I was looking at it today. I didn't realize he's been in the league that long, and he's played 120 for for the for the Bucks. And there's only one real season where he was really hurt, and he's put up some pretty good numbers there. So I don't know that he you could get the type of locker room presence, or you could recreate that with Dominic Sue, but you can definitely the production. You could probably get that. You could probably replace McCoy with Sue production-wise right away. But it's gonna change, and I think everything right now in Tampa Bay is changing, and that's what's gonna happen. Some of these older players, they'll get jettisoned out of there for newer, fresher blood. And I know Ndamukong Suh is an older player himself, but it's just time for something else. If they could have worked out something, I'm pretty sure. If they could have worked something out, I'm pretty sure that they would have had a deal in place already. They would have just restructured Gerald McCoy's deal, and he'd still be playing there. But at this point, I think that they're just trying to go in a different direction, and Sue will probably just be like a one year rental, and then they'll replace that D tackle spot for the long haul going forward.
Yeah, I thought it was just to piggyback on what you talked about with Ndamukong Suh. People thinking that he's a dirty player. A way to describe him, he's kind of like, he plays like the Incredible Hulk. That he doesn't really care what he does out there, but he's loyal to his team. I'm curious, how does this shake up though what's going on with the Rams with losing Sue? Is on the defensive line, do you feel like they have just a lot of more guys that they feel that they're not going to lose production out of him, or is this a big loss for their defensive line there with the Rams?
Yeah, it's gonna be really hard to tell somebody that you can replace Sue where they had him right next to Aaron Donald. But I think because they have Donald there, that a lot of people don't believe that they need another guy, maybe that type of caliber player. And when Aaron Donald is Defensive Player of the Year, you can probably put a rookie or a lesser free agent next to him. You probably just want maybe a bigger, girthier guy to go next to him. But I think again, it comes down to the salary cap. These guys, teams, their whole idea is they're gonna get under the cap and they're gonna do it fast. And when the Rams signed Sue, it was almost like the Warriors signing DeMarcus Cousins. I don't think they really had big aspirations of past this year. The Rams signed Sue so they could have a great defensive front, so they could get to the Super Bowl, and they made it to the Super Bowl. At this point now, they signed so many players last year that they're going to have to start cutting costs. Whether it's this year, right now, with cutting Sue, whether it's in training camp and preseason when they realize somebody that they drafted might be suitable enough to start, and they get rid of another veteran wherever they can find it. That's just the nature of the beast. The NFL is just that way. So it's not – I don't think the Rams themselves wanted to get Sue. They like having that right up the middle where you can't just run the football up against them right up the middle. I thought they loved having it. So, you can't, like you said, he plays like the Incredible Hulk. When you see him in person, he's a very intimidating looking kind of guy, just his presence alone, and not just his facial expressions. I mean, he stands next to you. I was at the Super Bowl. I stood next to a couple of NFL players, and I felt like I was way bigger than them, and they weren't like, I wasn't talking about just like wide receivers and running backs. I mean, some of even the defensive players. This guy plays linebacker. When you stand next to Sue, you have no such thoughts. Like, this is a big, physical man just standing next to you. You can feel his presence, and you can't replace that with anybody. You just can't replace that with anybody. I think the fact that you have Donald, you can feel like you can put anybody next to him. But I think the combination of Donald and Sue was very ferocious and very intimidating. To now, so where teams will probably double team Donald more until somebody else steps up in that defense.
But do you feel like the Rams could possibly get back to the Super Bowl with them cutting their players right now and kind of taking, I guess, rebounding from their losses?
Yeah, but it's more than likely no, because most of the time when you lose a Super Bowl, it I don't know. I can't even explain it, but that most of the time you're not going back the next year. And it's usually because of stuff like this. You load it up with free agents 1 year. And at this point now, you have to cut some of them just to keep yourself under cap or just to be able to get some talent and upgrades. Because let's face it, if you lose a Super Bowl, that means you still need something. You're still missing something to win the Super Bowl. And if you're not replacing the coach or the quarterback, or, some of the skill position players have to be changed. Some of the defensive players have to be changed. And you're going to need a rookie or two to step up. It's not just going to be, we've got the same team. If you can somehow keep the same exact team, well, probably you do go back. But the Rams really, I don't want to say they put their eggs in the 2018 basket, but they really kind of did with some of the moves they made last year. They were really trying to go out and win it all last year. Now I think the Rams will still be a good team because their offense, for the most part, will still be intact. They're gonna want some of those rookies, and I haven't really looked at their draft board, but they're gonna want some of those rookies to be able to step up and be starters at a couple of positions, because they're just going to lose guys. They're just going to lose guys. They're going to lose guys because of the salary cap, and inevitably they're going to lose guys because of injuries. So whoever they drafted this year, they're going to rely heavily on a lot of those players. I mean, their top 2, 3, 4 draft picks, whoever they are.
With Gerald McCoy now, where do you think that he's going to go? Who's interested in him?
Yeah. And now, wouldn't that be crazy if the Rams somehow worked out a way to sign Gerald McCoy?
That would.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard because you say to yourself, if you're a general manager, if you're a fan, if you're whatever, you say to yourself, good offensive linemen and good defensive tackles are usually not available for a long time, which was funny how Ndamukong Suh just was a free agent for how many months until recently. You don't lose a guy like you don't cut a guy like Gerald McCoy and everybody bypasses the fact that he's a free agent. So there's something all to say about an aging guy that plays those positions. Why did the Bucks not want to keep him? Is there an underlying injury that we haven't found or heard of? Is he, what's his work? Like, you'll always get that when it's a defensive tackle or an offensive lineman that's been there for how many years and was Pro Bowl caliber, Pro caliber, and then all of a sudden they just cut him. A lot of people will feel like, well, why is the team cutting bait now? And I don't think McCoy is like that. I think it always comes down to situation and coaching. So should Gerald McCoy go for the money? At this point in his career, he probably should go for the best deal financially, but maybe he wants to win a championship. And trust me, at the rate that the Patriots are getting free agents and the type of players that they drafted, they're loading up to go right back to the Super Bowl. And I feel very, very scared for the rest of the league. And they're making moves that nobody's even talking about. And those are great moves. Getting a guy like Ben Watson to not retire and come there and replace Gronk. Trust me, if you don't think he can replace Gronk production-wise, he can, especially last year's version of Gronk. The kind of players that they drafted in the first round the last 2 years complement Tom Brady in Sony Michel last year and Nikhil Harry this year. If they sign McCoy right now, that would be almost just, you know, a letdown for the rest of the league, because then, you know, they're building their team. They're getting players. I think the local team, Atlanta, should really think about picking up a guy like McCoy. They've played him so many times, being a division rival of the Bucks. And to me, in that 4-3 scheme that they run, or a cover, you know, that they run a coverage scheme. I want to say it's a cover 4. You know, you want the guys up front that can maybe put pressure on the quarterback without blitzing. If you put McCoy right next to Grady Jarrett, not only will that help, because I don't think either one of those guys, is a perennial double-digit guy. I think Grady's a much better pass rusher per se. If you put McCoy and Grady Jarrett in the middle, it's almost impossible for teams to run. And if you look at the division they play in, you've got Kamara and Ingram on the Saints, and you've got McCaffrey now. And I want to say the Panthers drafted another running back, or picked up another running back.
Elijah Holyfield.
Huh?
They picked up Elijah Holyfield.
Right. They picked up a bruiser like Holyfield to go with McCaffrey. And the Bucks, their running game hasn't been all that spectacular. But, I mean, if you just think of those two teams alone, if you're the Falcons, man, wouldn't you like to get him and just plug him in right next to Grady Jarrett? The popular team, of course, right now is the Browns. And if they have money right now, it seems like they're just going to pick the guy up if they've got the money. And the Browns right now are the teams that everybody's looking at. Like, Cleveland is this great free agent destination all of a sudden. And maybe McCoy feels like he wants to be a part of this new wave of, they haven't won anything yet, but there's this wave, there's this aura about them now where it's like, we're going to do it now, So maybe everybody wants to get on that Cleveland gravy train right now. I can see McCoy in a lot of places. I mean, there's 32 teams. I can see him on probably 28 other teams right now. Where would I like to see him go? If you're asking the question before you do, I'd love to see him stay in the division and go to the Falcons. I wouldn't lie. Stay in the division, go to the Falcons, maybe even the Saints, and just have to play play Tampa Bay 2 times a year. That would be great.
I was gonna say, I wondered if it was realistic for Grady Jarrett to go, not Grady Jarrett. Oh, what am I thinking? For McCoy to be in a Falcons uniform, but I didn't know if the money was there. But before we talk about the Falcons, you mentioned Ben Watson, who is a former Georgia Bulldog, by the way. Him going to the Patriots. How did the Patriots convince him to? How did the Patriots convince him to play for them when it seems like you said that he was considering retirement and he's had one heck of a NFL career, so no one's gonna blame him if he retires, but this is a steal, and this is familiar territory for Tom Brady because he's thrown to him before. So this just boggles my mind that the Patriots picked him up.
Yeah, and when I saw it, I was sitting down and I thought I would be more shocked than I was, but I really wasn't. This was typical Bill Belichick magic or whatever you want to call it. He probably just put up video of Tom Brady last year, and he said, "Just watch, just look at this. Let's look real quick. See this? We're gonna hit you right here. This is you." He probably just pointed to a part of the field and said, "This is gonna be you next year, and you're gonna come here and you might get 60 to 70 catches and whatever amount of touchdowns because right now they run that short pass, 5 yard, 10 yards, run the football, 5 yard, 10 yard, run the football, take one shot downfield, run the football. You know, they run that kind of offense now. And despite what people tell me, I know for a fact Tom Brady is not gearing up to throw long, deep fastballs when he lines up behind center. He's trying to go right there. He's trying to hit an open guy 10 to 15 yards down the field, 15 yards being the longest way down the field, so his passes are still crisp and accurate. Right now, people don't believe me, but Tom Brady's deep ball is not what it used to be. That's why he's going to miss Rob Gronkowski. That's why the Patriots have not officially released Josh Gordon, despite whether he can play or not. The Patriots are doing their due diligence. They drafted a jump ball, tall wide receiver from Arizona State. So basically, they drafted a guy who was under Herman Edwards, who can go up and get the ball if Tom Brady just throws it close to him in the air. These are the type of players you surround Tom Brady with when he cannot throw it hard anymore. You see what I'm saying? So they're making the right moves at the right time. And Ben Watson, I think, that just ties everything in. Losing Gronkowski was one of the biggest things Bill Belichick had to address. And if you look at it, like I said, they drafted Harry, they got Watson. He made sure that he got a couple of guys where Brady can rely on. Now, again, Harry's a rookie, but again, he's a 50-50 jump ball guy. So you're going to practice that with him. You're going to practice. Brady will throw it up. You will go up and get the ball. That's your job, young man, right? Watson will be his safety valve. You understand? Watson will be there 5, 6, 7 yards down the field. He's going to catch the ball when Brady throws it to him, and he'll turn it 2, 3 yards upfield. It's perfect for the Patriots offense.
Well, you talked about Belichick putting on a tape of their offense and what they could do. I don't think he even has to do that. I just think he just has to put on a highlight reel from 2005 to 2009 and say, hey, remember these days when you torched the NFL with linebackers and secondaries? You want to do that again?
Yeah, I think if you put on that tape, though, it'll be like more of them reminiscing over the good old days over there. Because let's face it, neither Belichick or Watson probably can play at that level that they could in 2000. I mean, Watson used to be like lights out, like one of the fastest guys I've seen at tight end. Realistically, he wasn't really slow in potting. I wouldn't say he was like Jimmy Graham fast or who else used to be really Shannon Sharp. But he used to really be able to move and cut agilely. Like he had a lot more speed than he has right now. I really believe that his hands right now and his reliability, right, it will be the best thing for the Patriots because he's basically going to go 5, 6, 7 yards upfield, turn around, and be in a zone little spot. And Edelman will be on the other side or whoever, and then you'll have two guys right there in the middle of the field for Brady to pick from, with the edge guys just, trying to take their man on the field. And he'll try to hit those edge guys once or twice because, they got Demaryius Thomas, I want to say, too. So, man, I mean, they're gearing up with taller, bigger guys where Brady can just hit the kind of basketball plays where they can just go upfield, curl up, come back to the ball, or just turn around and box out their guy. So.
Well, I feel like the best memory I have of Ben Watson was in 2002 in the SEC Championship where David Green just rolled out through and Ben Watson was on a post to the end zone for a touchdown, and it just seemed like Ben Watson was on another level than everyone else. That they just made that play look too easy. So you probably don't know what I'm referencing, but anyways, speaking of, speaking of the old Georgia Dome, the Atlanta Falcons trying to lock down Grady Jarrett for life, to be a Falcon for life. Do you feel like this is a good move by the Falcons, and do you feel like Grady Jarrett deserves it?
Well, of course, Grady deserves it. If you look at the Falcons' defense and how he's performed, probably since that year of the Super Bowl up and even till this year, he's one of, if not their best defensive players. I would probably say he's their best defensive player. But you got to look at it from a standpoint of when you got the guys on your team that perform, you got to go one or two ways with it. You're either going to go the way of, we're going to use this guy's talent until he doesn't have it anymore, and then you're going to get rid of him. That's the crude, shrewd business sense of it. When you draft a running back, running backs fall to that all the time. They're going to draft him. They're going to give him a rookie contract, 4 years, 50-year option, first-round pick. And for 2 years, they'll franchise him, and then they'll cut him, a la Le'Veon Bell. That happens sometimes. So the Falcons are not trying to do that when they have a young or good-aged middle guy defensive tackle that they could have to anchor their defense for 4 or 5 years. They're going to try to sign him and go the other route of you just pay the guy and hope that he continues to produce the way he's been producing for the last amount of years. Now, again, you're not talking about a guy that's a big sack guy, you know? Like he's not going to have double-digit sacks for the season, not perennially. Maybe he'll break through 1 or 2 years. But it's a defensive tackle position where he does put pressure on the quarterback, and he does hold up against double teams when it comes to running the football against the Falcons. And you can't tell me that you're going to draft a guy that's putting that up production right away. Maybe once in a lifetime, generational players, you draft them, and in year one, they're 10 sacks from the defensive tackle position. Sure, it happens, but the Falcons aren't even in that position to draft that kind of guy. They've had a tough go of it last year, but they weren't like the worst team in the league, and I just think they're going to try to swap these guys. Remember, another thing about Jarrett, which gets glossed over a lot, is his availability. Last year when the Falcons had a lot of injuries, Jarrett was there for the most part the whole season. He might have missed a game or two, but the rest of the team were non-existent. So these are the type of guys, if you're trying to get back to the Super Bowl like Atlanta is, you got to get these guys sewn up, and you've got to bring in guys to help them out. So by signing Jarrett to a long-term deal, you already know what percentage of your cap you're using to have this guy on your team. That also helps in the free agency search to get players next to him, to get more players for your defense, to help him and have a good defense. So you go ahead and sign him now. I definitely think it's a good move for the Falcons. It's just when you do too much chastising back and forth with the contract, it starts to get a little stale. So if they're going to do it, they might as well do it now instead of talking about it, and we should sign that. They need to get it done already.
Well, there you go. With the Falcons too, you have Dirk Cutter coming back. Do you feel like this is going to help Matt Ryan at all, or if they can keep Dirk Cutter around, do you feel like that is going to help Matt Ryan's success in the future?
I don't think. You see, I think the whole reason of bringing in Dirk Cutter was because he was a familiar face to Matt Ryan, and they don't want to change too much the offense again and again and again and again. It's a different story when you bring in a guy like Sarkisian and you don't change the offense too much from the Shanahan offense, but you have another guy calling the plays. Like, it's still changing the philosophy and whatever. You know, Dirk Cutter is familiar with Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan is familiar with Dirk Cutter. The things that they will do together are things that will happen, you know, on a familiar basis. Like, I think for the most part the offense was kind of stagnant last year. It was way too much go to Julio Jones when the chips fell. You got a guy like Austin Hooper who you can see can be a great asset at tight end. They didn't throw a lot out the backfield, which was shocking to me when you had Coleman playing most of the snaps at running back. They didn't screen a lot, which to me is almost insane when you have the type of personnel the Falcons have. They ran a very limited amount of wide receiver screens, a very limited amount of running back screen, a very limited amount of Sanu Wildcat plays. You got a guy like Ridley on the team. They didn't run a ton of reverses. I mean, the offense under Sarkisian, it didn't look as open as it would have in here. Now, some of that was due to the offensive line. Some of that was due to the offensive line. Some of that was due to play calling. Some of that was due to Matt Ryan even. But I just think that the familiarity between Cutter and Matt Ryan was the main reason they brought him back. Because let's face it, they've been changing up the offensive coordinators on Ryan for a couple of years, for probably his whole career. I'm lost at the amount of numbers that the amount of offensive coordinators and guys input, the amount of chefs in the kitchen trying to make this Matt Ryan stew. Like you got to give the guy one guy and let us say, you know, if you can keep Cutter for a year, for a bunch of years, it'll be great. It'll be great for him. I think Dirk Cutter, it will be great for Matt Ryan, but I just think it's a whole familiarity thing. And I also think he'll open it up. I think he looks at the tape and he says, you know, when they were there with Tony Gonzalez, these guys ran wide receiver screens. These guys ran a lot of screens. I don't understand the screenplay. Why is it's almost being abolished league-wide? What are people afraid to run screens? They run those pick plays all day, but they're afraid to run running back screens now? And these guys can catch so well? It's ridiculous.
I guess them throwing the deep ball is just more exciting to watch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but even those screens used to turn into like some of the better plays, and you know, the Brian Westbrooks of the world, and LaDainian Tomlinson, and you know, those guys get a screen pass. Yeah, even here in Atlanta, Warwick Dunn screen pass, man. You know, you take that all the way.
I'm surprised we live in a world right now where no one drafts in the first round running backs anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I thought.
Yeah,
I remember the days
when.
Go ahead.
I'm saying you only get the one or two now in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
The guy that looks like he can catch. You know, the guy that looks like he could catch and run between the tackles. You only get the Christian McCaffreys in the first round now, and the Saquon Barkleys. So, you know, running backs will drop now unless they can do everything, and it remains to be seen if that translates all the time. So we'll see.
Well, then it's like you have college programs that you're not really asked to do a lot as running backs too.
Mm-hmm.
You just have specialty guys that you put in different down and distances. You have power guys, you have slasher backs. So maybe this is to the college game of places like Georgia and Alabama and Clemson that stack up with running backs, and you use them just for different down and distances, and that's probably hurting their development. So
yeah,
the game has just evolved in so many ways.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was saying the thing is, it's just that there's so many the college thing. There's so many running backs that are good in college. You gotta kind of differentiate the ones that you think will be that good in the NFL. I think that the way that the offenses are run now in college, these newer running backs, it'll revert back to its old self again, where you'll get 3, 4, 5 running backs in the first round, because these newer running backs in the college game are now they're relying on them more to throw. They're relying on them more to throw to them in the backfield, and there's so many colleges now that just has a back. Like, he's not a wide receiver, he's not a running back. He's like Percy Harvin or
right.
Well, I forget this other guy. I had the other guy in my head just now, but like Percy Harvin is a perfect example. You know, James McKnight is the other guy I was thinking about. It's like the guys were just backs. It's like you line them up at wide receiver, you line them up at running back, and you know you're just gonna throw it to him. It doesn't matter if he's, you know. So it's like, you're going to get a lot of those guys now where they're in college and they're running the football, but it's like the offense is set up to where, well, he's going to be in a slot too. He's going to be in the backfield. He's going to be here. He's going to be at the edge. And it's like, when he comes to the NFL.
I call those athletes.
Right.
That's the only position you can call them. They are just athletes. Wherever you need to line them up at, they can play that position.
Right, and that's what I said. But they're just going to look at the ones. They're going to look at the ones that can actually run between the tackles too, and those are the ones that are going to get drafted high. And these guys that can just catch or whatever, they get to the league and they're turned into punt returners first and foremost, but they're turned into slot receivers. Like, like Julian Edelman, for instance, they turn him into like slot receivers. And then in today's NFL, you need that guy in the slot that can maybe go across the middle 2, 3 yards, 5 yards off the line of scrimmage and catch the ball. Not necessarily a running back, but an extension of the run game. You can line them up in the backfield knowing that you're going to throw it to him. You can line him up on the edge at wide receiver knowing that you're going to give him a reverse, around the corner. So it's like you said, these athletes, they're just becoming more and more abundant in college football, where the guy's a running back and he's a wide receiver, and he kind of has a running back's body, but he can catch, and he can run between the tackles. These are the guys that will get that first round grade, instead of them coming to the NFL as one and a coach changing them into the other, like Bill Belichick does with a James White. Like, they're just going to come out of college now as that, I think, because there's just too many colleges with those kind of players.
Right. Well, thank you, Ab, for being on. It was fun as always. Where can we reach you at on social media? And you do write a lot for the 3-point conversion. So where can we find your stuff at?
Yeah, you can find me. I'm Ab Stanley at the 3pointconversion.com, along with a lot of other great writers and articles. You can find me on social media, Facebook at Ab Stanley, on Twitter at Strakt, STRAKT _Marino, and on Instagram I am at Ab Stanley, the 3-point conversion.
Well, Ab, it was great having you on the show as always, and I hope you have a good Memorial Day weekend.
Oh, you too, Alex. Enjoy, man.
All right. Thank you, man.
All right.
Well, there's some surprising news out there, and I'm going to end the show with this. D'Wan Mathis, the backup quarterback for the University of Georgia. Or for at least right now, it looks like he's going to be the backup quarterback this year. And he was a kid that was recruited out of Michigan. The kid that looked like he was going to be playing ball for Ryan Day and the Ohio State Buckeyes. And then when Justin Fields decided, hey, I wanna be a Buckeye too, DeJuan decided to come down south to the University of Georgia, and apparently just because of being down here, not used to the heat, and I feel like we're kind of feeling the heat right now. Especially in the dungeon right now because of the air conditioners on the weekend too here. So, but he actually ended up having a cyst in his brain and had to do brain surgery, I think on Wednesday. And he was in the ICU last night just for precautionary measures. So it looks like right now that Dwayne is going to be able to recover very nicely, and that this shouldn't I don't think this is gonna affect his playing time or playing when the season starts. From what the reports seem like, he seems like he'll be back ready to go by the time football season starts. But still, we're gonna have to probably play it by ear. And Terrence Mathis was thanking Kirby Smart and the medical staff over there for seeing this and getting this done and taking care of his son in that matter. Even James Coley, I think, was over there visiting him last night. So that's a good sign for the Georgia program to for their coaching staff to support a guy like that going through this, having to do unexpected surgery, and but it seems like this guy is going to have a good recovery. But this was just very surprising reading this article last night. So hopefully this is nothing, and just pray for the Mathis family. And right now it seems like they're pretty much out of the woods with this. So so it looks like everything is going to be all right with that situation. Well, with that being said, we're going to get you out of here and get the show up on the internet. So thanks for hanging out with us today here at the ATL Boxscore, because we just want to talk about sports and sports in the Atlanta metro area. At least I do. Steve always likes to try to talk about his teams in the Bay. Uses this as an outlet.
Go Dubs. Hey, I brought it back. I talked about the Braves beating the Giants, so at least it wasn't just the Bay.
But you always sprinkle in the Dubs stuff.
Dubs are still, hey, next week. That was great. It's been a great Milwaukee-Toronto series, by the way.
Do you remember what you texted me, though, after you guys finished Houston?
What was that?
You're like, I want to talk about this on Monday.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Splashback.
Yeah.
Did you hear about Chris Paul and James Harden? Apparently they had some words in the post-game locker room.
Oh, they're breaking up?
Yeah, probably.
No more All-State commercials?
I mean, those commercials are so dumb.
Is it Allstate or State Farm?
I think it's State Farm.
State Farm, that's right.
Yeah, the best part
because they always show the farm in those commercials.
Are the guy from The Office, Oscar.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah.
That guy always seems like he's like Agent Coulson.
Right, from S.H.I.E.L.D.
From S.H.I.E.L.D., that he's so in love with these guys and everything like that. That
right.
He seems like he's just one of those guys. He's just grateful he can hang out with them.
Yeah, exactly.
But always something seems to happen with.
But Trouble in Paradise, or should I say Trouble in Houston, which isn't anybody's paradise.
You know, Houston's actually in a bowl, like New Orleans.
Like a trash bowl?
well, like a bowl that they had to like kind of carve out to build the city.
Oh, is
Since
that why it
since
floods all so often?
Yeah, that's why it floods like
That
New Orleans.
sucks. I've never been to Houston.
I would go to Houston.
Well, have fun. I never want to go to Houston.
You never want to go to Houston.
I actually don't even really want to go to Texas.
I want to ask you that, but we just don't have that much time.
Okay. Cliffhanger.
Right. It's going to be an offline discussion. So I've loved going to Texas, but that's just me.
All my exes live in Texas.
You know, my dad would always sing that song, but
Oh, okay.
and that's why I live in Tennessee. So anyways, this is the ATL Boxscore podcast. Thanks for hanging out with us today during your Memorial Day festivities. Appreciate you guys checking us out. Again, if you're listening to this part of the show, definitely appreciate it. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. I just might comment back on your comments if you feel the need to express yourself in the comment section. So with that being said, we are, can I do the loud noise?
Go for it. It's the
I
loud
could do-
noise.
I couldn't do the loud noise last time we did this thing.
Right. No loud noise.
I forgot why.
Because we're in the library.
The library. But I gotta figure out real quick, what episode are we on? Let's go. Let's just know. I don't like doing that, as I've done that before, and
Episode. I'm gonna say 59.
I think we're at 59.
That's what I want to say. Am I right?
We are at 59, actually.
Yes.
So you're right about that.
Yes. Good point.
So there we go. So, like, subscribe, comment, and episode